It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! Hello! Hello! It's Feedback Friday. And as we wait for the chat to build, I am going to sort of summarize some of the feedback comments for the one and only video I did this week. Regular service will resume eventually. Perhaps not this Monday because we're shifting a Lady Bits feedback session for one weekend to give people who can't do it during the week an opportunity. We'll see how that goes, but that means that I won't be able to get as much done for Monday. I gotta figure out what to do with the fact that Momo Monday is one of the more labor-intensive sessions of the week because I have to use whatever cat videos I shot during the week and then hide the fact that I don't have enough material with pictures. So, hi guys, there are quite a few people here already, which is why I moved it to 1 p.m. I find that between 1 and 3 is the time that the most people can attend these. I don't know why. Maybe it's a lunch break. Maybe it's because it's Friday, the afternoons. People can slack at work a little bit more. I don't know, but that's... I've just found that. I want to give a shout out to a regular attendee of these. I don't know if he's going to show up today. I don't think he can. I think he's at work today. But thanks, Anton. Yose Sovereign, who you guys probably recognize from... Hello, Patches! Patches has arrived. Patches has arrived. Yeah, Yose is a regular contributor here, and he made a video inspired by the idea of Lady Bits, and it's about Tronbon, the Mega Man villainess who has a standalone game as an anti-hero, and it's a really great little 8-minute video. I gave it a like on YouTube. How do I link without... I guess I can link to the chat. I'll pull up my chat thing, move over, whoop, in the wrong place. There we go. And then post the link so people can seize it in the chat. Hi guys. And there's the link so you can see it on the video. I'll hyperlink it in the comments if I remember as well. I need to make notes to myself. These things go on a while, and then when I have to do all the data, I'm like, what did I do? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just copy and paste it right now in the description so it will update. Here we go. Yose's video. There we go. All right. So I will get the chat out of my face. Oh, there's a question. Oh, goodness. Okay. I will talk about the other stuff later then. Let's get right to the questions. Chat. So my first question for you is, what are your thoughts on how much... Oh, sorry. People's screen names. Sorry, guys. Won't do that there again. Apologize. My first question for you is, what are your thoughts on how much the Games Press has changed from the days of gaming magazines compared to online Games Press, if there's any considerable difference? It's gone kind of in waves, because when it was gaming magazines, things were very positive because it was all hype, hype, hype. Now, there weren't as many vehicles, so there was a lot more advertising bucks for each magazine. Magazines were more informative. No, the camera has not arrived yet, Stephen. Gaming magazines were more informative. So here's how you beat this level. Here's a cheat code. Here's a little hint. The internet kind of made that irrelevant. Remember the guidebooks you used to have to buy? They were always a massive ripoff. Like, you should not need a guidebook to finish a game. Oh, Yossi's here! Yossi, I was talking about your awesome video. I plugged it. I put it in the comments and everything like that. So that changed. That the purpose of games writing has changed. But also, we go through waves where when it first started moving from magazine to web, it was um, very negative. And that began the cycle of publishers not giving as much access as they once did. When I first started writing about games, the publishers could not do enough for you. It was, please cover us, and it didn't matter how big or small you were. You could go up and you could play the demo back in the days where they had a ton of demo stations, and just you could write an informed opinion on what you were watching. Now, then things started getting really negative, and the access started reducing because the idea became not to counter the bad PR, but to try to avoid the bad PR by giving people nothing to complain about. And this began this death spiral on the games press and publishers, in this really toxic relationship that is persisting. And it got more positive for a while. People started going, yeah, we were dicks and we don't blame the games publishers for cracking down, so we'll try to be more fair. And then we kind of went into this wave of the popularity of gaming exploded, and with it came a perception that there's this whole new type of reader that is less interested in game mechanics and how the game plays, and sort of a more technical review of a game, and more interested in social issues and themes. And basically a lot of people with junk film degrees decided to squat on gaming. And that's where we're at right now. And yeah, that was harsh, but that's the awesome thing about Feedback Friday. It's the end of the week. I technical produce a live show for Facebook, and then it uploads later on YouTube on Thursday nights. I'm really tired and punchy, so you get more unvarnished opinion. You get the rougher Leanna. I got my Kratos t-shirt on. You can see Kratos' head. It looks kind of like this guy behind me. That's sort of where we're at. That's been the slide. And hi, Ice Highwind. Yeah, okay. Pivoting now, getting to another question, because Tim asked about Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. Yeah, and that's really, you guys know how I feel about this stuff, and he was very close with Chris Cornell. He was like the godfather of his kids, and so oh wow. I am going to decline commenting on because of personal history with the individual involved. I have nothing good to say, but if I say what happened, it might burn me with one of the few outlets that doesn't already refuse to have anything to do with me. So I'm in a difficult place here. And it kind of sucks, because the reality with Lady Bits is that once it launches, press is gonna be kind of a nice thing, and just like the Kickstarter, I didn't rely on it, but you know what, any little bit helps. And let's just say hypocrisy abounds, and I like the direction that the website in question is headed. And I know that's cryptic, but I don't want to get into sort of a pissing match on it, because there are certain things I have learned, and I don't think this is especially fair, but it is the reality where basically what happened was so bad that there is no way that I can tell the story without seeming like a victim. And that doesn't serve me. You guys know I avoid this. And so talking about it, being transparent about this particular thing can actually harm me in the long run, because then I get those people going on Kotaku in Action and going, oh, look, she's victiming, she's a pro-victim, she's just looking for Patreon bucks, she's talking about this stuff with a Patreon link in her. And it's like, first of all, stop punishing people for trying to make money, because that's why we're all here. Secondly, fuck you. Remember I said this was going to be the very blunt me. And there's another question. Is it safe to say that Lady Bits is going to focus on positive things going on in gaming culture? Yeah. Overall, yeah. There will be enough critique, I avoid the word criticism, to make it a bit more meaty, to make it not just seem like getting the pom-poms out. But it's definitely going to show the positive side of things. The feedback session for Lady Bits this week was really, really interesting. The last couple weeks, we've spent most of the session just defining terminologies for the purpose of the program, which, time to Japan, you don't think KIA would do that? Some users on KIA do that every time my name is mentioned. So yes, not the whole board, but some. Every time my name comes up, they start breathing fire and bile and acid. Moving on. So would you say this whole transition to an ideologically driven games press has been bubbling under the surface for a long time before it hit the fan in 2014? This no fun zone that we're in right now is part of gaming, people thinking that you have to be taken seriously to earn money. And I think that's wrong. I think people gravitate towards entertainment stuff that there's a difference between making someone think and making someone feel shitty. And I think that the games press doesn't recognize that you can inform people without making them feel shitty. We haven't yet. The problem is you get these sensitive types who on the one hand want to use their liberal arts degree they're not using and use all these $1 million words. And then they want to do the OMG dudes, I'm like a gamer 2G and I can get with the lingo, bro, and we're gonna leet some noobs and loot the drop, and they start trying to do that, ingratiate yourself, into gaming culture without actually being somebody that comes by naturally. I had the opposite problem. I really had to dial back the gamer parlance to get published. Oh, we're having some connection issues. Okay, green again. But I really had to dial that back to sort of get published, and it was, in the long term, not good for me. The problem I had freelancing, being at all these different sites, is because of the editorial process, I was sounding like a completely different person on every site I wrote for, and I was getting the criticism that I was some kind of poser, or I was cherry picking or sitting the fence, and at first I was like, what do you mean? And then I realized, oh, right. It's passing through a different editorial filter with each site. And so somebody who reads these things side by side is rightly be suspicious. And that's resulted in a lot of fighting behind the scenes with me and editors because, I end up pulling pieces as opposed to not sounding like me. And before I tried to be more conciliatory, sort of go along to get along. All right, fine. This is your publication. You have final say. I don't mind this word change. I've been much more militant about maintaining a consistent voice because it's important to the people who follow my content. And part of the ideological drive, Sweetra, is that there is really game sites benefit from high profile writers much more than high profile writers benefit from being on a game site or video content or whatever. That I have found that I thought that going to these higher ranked sites would result in more traffic for me. I found that was not so. The numbers didn't change very much. The monetization on those numbers was obviously much better, but I can't really say I was making any more. A little bit more, maybe. And the nice thing was it was steady. But that's part of the problem. And so people say these ridiculous, outrageous things to be noticed, but to be noticed for being smart. Because don't forget, these games writers are nerds too. They're almost nerdier nerds than gaming nerds. And so while gamers can have a laugh and not take themselves so seriously and kind of like shitpost, that's sort of the core of shitposting, a lot of games writers are dealing with deep professional insecurity of, I am a serious thinker, damn it. And it shows in their writing, whereas somebody like me who's been around for a really long damn time and has done a lot of different media work, we're much more, look, this is just my opinion. And you can like it, you can not like it, but don't demand I change it. You know, make your case. And that, actually, there's too many questions. I'm not going to get into that. Gorgon Char said, must be tough having to work so hard for every bit of coverage. That was the most unexpected thing from the Kickstarter. How much time running down, 5 or 6 media interviews took. And I'm very appreciative of the people who took the time. But if you're ever going to run a Kickstarter, you kind of have to call in your friends in the press. Like, it's got to get recorded and done. Like, oh, Red, get better. Come on. Sorry. OBS is giving me a bitrate warning. Are we still okay? It's still green on the YouTube. Oh, but there are frame rate things. Oh, how weird. This has never happened before. Okay, let's let this sort out. Give it a minute. Shit. Come on. Okay, I'm going to switch off real quickly and try to jump back on because I don't know what's going on here. Maybe too much is open. Let's shut some stuff down. Maybe not have my email open. Hey, that worked. Hey, okay, it was Outlook. Oh, you silly, silly Outlook. Okay, we're back. So, yeah, I was really surprised that if you don't get those interviews lined up in like the first week of your Kickstarter, they don't run quickly enough to do you much good. And now YouTube is taking a crap. This is not a good day for the streams. Right. This is why I avoided the 1 o'clock hour. It's the most popular one. People watch. So we seem to be okay now. The performance doesn't seem to be so bad. Not like when OBS was in the shitter. Okay, I'm going to keep going and hope this isn't a huge problem. Here we go. Let's see. More generally, do I believe there's any merit in the anime girls are sexualized children because of schoolgirl outfits and coding, even though they have like W-cut boobs and stuff argument? Is there any merit in an argument is a very specific question. And I think that just a one-to-one answer of yes, there is merit might be a bit of a reductive answer. Do I think it is a strong argument that anime girls are sexualized children? No. First of all, they're sexualized teenagers, not children, and that is very different considering you are talking about, in the shonen case, programming for boys, and in the shoujo case, programming for girls. So there is really nothing wrong with kind of recognizing that kids today are interested in sex, are sexually active, and those are the school uniforms they wear. So if they're doing anything in a school, um, uh, that's what they're going to be wearing. And yeah, the YouTube fixed itself. Okay, good. And so sexualized children, no, they're teenagers, and teenagers are pretty sexual. Just ask Teen Vogue, who thinks that they need to do a shitty politically driven guide to anal sex. All Japanese media is bigger on sex or sexy time, sexy technique, to quote Naruto, than violence. And it's a different cultural focus that I don't think it's fair to say is right or wrong. Don't forget also, Japanese media intends to displace reality, not reflect reality. It's not the same goal. So I disagree. Because to me, when you say sexualizing children, that brings up the image of like diddling a 6-year-old. And I think it's perfectly fine to create content that relates to teens on their level. Now, if it's anime designed for adults, okay, maybe that is, but I don't think it's that easy to determine. I mean, most of the stuff we see is shonen, shoujo, which is very much teen market, right? So teenagers are curious about sex. You're not going to stop that by pretending that doesn't exist. I think doing it responsibly and sending halfway decent messages. I just hit myself in my own boob. Why'd I do that? But that's my very long-winded answer because I wanted to be careful on it. Questions. Yes, Off-Brand, we are taking questions. 70 quoted, "Greetings, fellow kids." I love that part. At this point, shouldn't people stop selling their souls and working for the media? I went independent. That's all I can say. Now, it's difficult to build your profile on your own. It can be done. I mean, technically, I work in the media. I just call my own shots. All the corruption you see on this channel is mostly my own. And Beelzebub's. Litter the devil. So the game sites didn't want me to sound like a gamer. Yeah, they all have these Associated Press inspired or Canadian Press inspired style guides, and they were whitening things in a way. They were making it blander by whitening. That's what I mean. Like they were bleaching it. And I philosophically disagree with that. You have to show, if anybody's going to respect your opinion, if anybody is going to find your opinion useful and your recommendations, they have to think that you are advising them in the right direction. And if you don't seem to get them, if you don't seem to sort of be interested in things that they're interested in for some of the reasons they're interested in it, then your recommendations are not going to be very useful, are they? And at the end of the day, gaming journalism, I prefer games writing, games opinion, has two sort of main focuses. One is sort of figuring out exactly what this thing we call, ludonarrative is, but the other is acting as a consumer advocate and actually making people aware of good products that you think they would enjoy because you enjoyed them. And if you come across as enjoying nothing, what are you good for on that second pillar? You're talking to hear yourself talk. You're not being useful as a reviewer. So, and I do only periodic reviews now because I have found that when publishers think you'll just go out and buy the game and give them coverage for nothing, they won't even give you the game. They are that cheap. And once I started doing things because there were recommendations, oh my god, Mass Effect, oh my god, Dishonored, oh my god, well, Bethesda doesn't give out shit anyway, but you don't get anything. You don't get review copies because they're looking to save a nickel every chance they get. So, you know, and reviews just don't bring in enough to bother playing games I'm not interested in just to review them. You know what I'm saying? At one point in the past decade, did liberals come to be defenders of the mainstream media? Growing up, I remember hearing about the decline in trust of mainstream media, especially the younger generations. Thoughts? I think... See, because the liberals, I consider liberals instead of moderates, are so fringe that they don't like the mainstream media any either. It's like Mike and Vice and Recode and stuff like that. They're the I don't own a TV type, as if that's supposed to be some badge of higher status. I think what's happened is that Fox News got founded, and Fox News became a right-wing answer to the liberal mainstream media. And so all those sort of moderate leftists who don't want the obvious skew that Fox News offers, unlike the more subtle skew that CNN has going on. It's funny because I thought when I first started watching MSNBC, I avoided it for a really long time because I'm like, I don't want the left-wing answer to Fox News. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly being manipulated and all that stuff. The television production on Fox News is brilliant. But I've been watching it, and they are much fairer to conservative politicians. I feel like they actually present and contextualize the news instead of talking about news for 5 minutes and then doing 25 minutes of opinion afterwards, telling the viewer what to think instead of what the facts are. And so that's where I think it kind of came from, is the origin of Fox News and them sort of declaring war on the mainstream media as if they're not mainstream media at this point. You know, they're outdrawing CNN. They're number 2 behind MSNBC. So sorry, Fox News, you are mainstream cable news. Here we go. Oh, jumped. Sorry, I lost it. Okay, I'm gonna lose some of this stuff. A lot of stuff about age of consent around the world. Canada has some of the most messed up, confusing age of consent laws in the world. So when people start talking about this, it's like, here, it's like, oh, it's this and that. It's like fucking damage multipliers in D&D all the time. Like, if you're 14, you get a +2, and if you're 15, you get a +3, and it's like, it's so confusing. Can you recommend a free or low-cost software for recording Let's Play style videos? Sharp and Pointless, console or PC? PC, OBS. It's totally free. OBS Studio, not vanilla OBS. It took me a while to get used to OBS Studio, but I like it much better now. That's for PC because you can just do the straight up monitor capture. It does get goofy. All things get goofy in one way or another when you're doing old games with the old 4:3 aspect ratio and not great resolution, but it does the job and it does it pretty well. For console stuff, I use the Elgato capture card, which is not awesome, but it's relatively inexpensive and it works. Configure its own onboard software is okay. It does not configure very well with any encoder. So you have to sort of do the stuff and either stream right from its software, which is kind of annoying, or fuck with it forever. And part of the reason I don't do Twitch is I have not spent, I do not have the time to screw with that stuff all the time. I have to do it for Thursday nights, and it is exhausting. So that's OBS is a really good free solution for PC gaming. Sorry, Jolly, I know I'm behind, but I don't quite understand your question. Do you think that the concept of being abused by people who want to use it as a way to push their own views and agendas rather to inform the customer? What do you mean? People in chat are talking about Doctor Who. Okay, chat jumped. I'm just gonna leave it. Okay, people are asking me about new Doctor Who. What do I think? I have wanted a female doctor since David Tennant left because it's a new story. How many times can you essentially write the same character? And don't get me wrong, I think a female doctor should still be the doctor. But it shuffles the board in a way because I'm sorry to offend anybody, but that show is completely out of gas. Like, they did some interesting standalone episodes with Matt Smith, at least, even though I felt he really lacked emotional range as Doctor Who. We went from Tennant, who was, Allons-y and run and all this stuff, and you could connect with it. Matt Smith, there were times where he needed to hit that 10 and he came in at a 6. And I think it's deliberate based on acting I've seen him do in other things. He's capable of more. But the Capaldi stuff just, and I admit I haven't seen a lot of it because I found it boring. And my husband hates the show, so I can only watch every so often to begin with. I don't know. I think Doctor Who is now a thing, and people are way too invested in it. And so now that it's a thing, it is not allowed to be anything. The same way sort of Mickey Mouse, Superman, and Kermit the Frog all went through those really bland periods. So I think this'll shake it up. It'll give a different spin on it, which everything needs a refresh every so often. And they're not going to let it go because it's just too viable a property. But I can almost guarantee you that it'll do the couple of years and then they'll move on, back to somebody else, and it'll probably be a guy, and everybody will kind of go, well, the world didn't end. Unless it's not a white guy, and then there'll be a whole new fight all over again because, I was saying on Twitter, it was kind of a joke, but I thought it would be cool. I'd love to see Rupert Grint play Doctor Who. I think he's got that sort of quirkiness that works. I'm not going to judge too hard because styling can do a lot. I don't know if that photo released is the actual look of the Doctor. It's just some promotional still of the actress they used. But if that is the new look, I think she's too glamorous. That has nothing to do with the actress. That's the way they styled her. I think she's got to be goofier because, let's face it, we're talking about a character that this is what, the 14th regeneration now? How does that not scramble you in some way? How does that not make you idiosyncratic? And why would, somebody who jumps throughout time and isn't a human being care terribly about human fashion and hair and all that stuff? That's just my thoughts on it. But yeah, I'm not the world's biggest Doctor Who fan. It's not one of the fandoms I'm really intensely devoted to. Um, so yeah, moving on. Yose's asking about my comments about Twilight. That Twilight is essentially a female power fantasy, and he wants to hear more about that. Female power fantasies are really poorly understood. And it comes because male power fantasies are about being the embodiment of perfect masculinity. So if you flip it around and being the embodiment of perfect femininity, you get Bella Swan, someone who is passive, insecure, negative as fuck, horribly flawed, but everybody loves her anyway. The ideal woman in media is a passive force. And she is also that embodiment of the strong female character that is defined not by what she does, because what she does is nothing until she has a baby, but what is done to her. Her ability to weather abuse of and mind games of numerous sorts. And in that regard, I mean, I think Bella Swan is the example of an actual Mary Sue. I think she's a self-insert of the author that was written into the book. And then you get 50 Shades of Grey that is essentially Twilight fan fiction with things renamed. And I think 50 Shades of Grey is an indication of what's really happening under the whole Twilight thing. It's not about vampires. And I mean, vampires were sort of a way of talking about sex through blood, but it's that whole dubious consent thing where all these things happen to Bella and she never consents because good girls don't. So all this amazing stuff happens to her against her will. Either she can't help it or she's forced to. And what this does is allows the perfect woman to have a very exciting story without being accountable for any of it. And that's like my Edvard Munch scream, like, moment, like, what does this say about this social programming, right? Like, that's my thought about the whole thing in brief. I could talk for an hour on that subject. Time to Japan's asking about that USA Today article that I'm surprised didn't land with a bigger bang about Steve Bannon and World of Warcraft and the Gamergate and basically putting Milo in there. And it was an interesting article. I don't have access to it right now, but I recommend you read it. Let's see, USA, because this is going to be tough to talk about without a point of reference. And I know, chat, I'm sorry, I'm getting super behind, but these are interesting questions. I'm trying to find it. And typing sideways isn't so good. Here we go. It's Steve Bannon learned to harness troll army from World of Warcraft. Let's do side screen. There we are. Here it is. Oh no, don't run a video. Oh, I hate this about articles. I hate embedded auto roll video. Ubisoft actually won't let you include those in your coverage of their stuff because it's annoying. Good for Ubisoft. It's a book called The Devil's Bargain. This is just an insert. And apparently he tried to do one of those gold farming operations. Didn't make any money. But he was interested in the community dynamics. And you can sort of see it here. Basically what I took from this, and it's very short here, but you can see that this basically refutes. See this quote here? They come in through Gamergate or whatever, and they get turned out of politics and Trump. This is basically proof positive that, you know, the alt-right did not come from Gamergate. Gamergate was co-opted by the alt-right. Like, evidence right here. Will the games press admit they're wrong? No. But, and this is what I've been saying all along, that Gamergate came from a legitimate concern by gamers who are not especially politically motivated in any sort of real way. They just want games. they were politicized by the constant attacks by the press that was supposed to be for them and advocating for them. And because gamers were cut adrift, opportunists of all sorts swooped in and started manipulating people for their own ends. And the gamers got blamed instead of looking at it for what it was. When you marginalize a group, when you cut people loose from the acceptable parameters of society, they become very vulnerable to manipulation and opportunism. And that is what I've said from the beginning happened. Somebody asked how they make their fart smell less rank. I don't know, man. If you're taking fiber, it's gonna be the stank. There's nothing you can do about that. There's a reason cows smell like cows. The more fiber, then again, dogs stink too. So I guess the way to make your fart stink less is just eat tofu. I don't know. Fart stink. C'est la vie. Oron, do you actually want me to ask that question about jumping out of bushes? I just want to make sure that that was for me, not the chat. I'm having trouble actually telling right now. Oh, bye, Blacker. So you can stay longer. Oh, it's a bunch of people giving fart advice and talking about Gamergate. So, okay, it was for me. The Base Salad Podcast. I like that, Kroganchar. Nobody would get it. For people in the chat wondering what Kroganchar's on about, we had this thing when I was playing Dead or Alive Volleyball, where my character, Helena, it was Helena at the time, got gifted a whole cabbage. And I'm like, a whole cabbage? Okay, I'll have her eat that. And I don't know if anybody, cabbage has the same impact on them that it does for the people I know. But cabbage, epic farts. And everything just became so much funnier. All those little concussive blasts that come out when you nail the spike. Oh my god, it was the funniest thing. And so some people started calling me Base Cabbage. Well, Rich's following has a thing about cucumbers. And so between cabbage and cucumbers, we have kind of a raunchy salad thing going on. That's what that means. But Oron's question was in reference to Outlander. But it's a serious question. Why do so many sexual fantasies for women seem to have rapists jumping out of every bush? I can't relate to those. I know they are very popular. But this seems to me like a way of kind of coping with a fear that's programmed into all women from when you're a very, very young kidlet. And this is something that has been a cautionary tale that women have been programmed with. Little Red Riding Hood came out of this when I was in college. See, this is what gender studies was for me, okay, as opposed to what it is now. The Hans Christian Andersen version of fairy tales that we're aware of today were actually quite sanitized. And so we had to read versions of the original folk tales that Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm and things like that retold for a popular audience, but they had a lot more sex and violence in them. And so in the original story of like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Snow White's raped by the dwarves and then becomes her housekeeper. Because that happened back then. And Little Red Riding Hood, and if you think about it, the Red Hood and the wolf, and it was all sort of a coming-of-age cautionary tale for women, because don't forget, this was back in the times that women were not supposed to be seen in public, and stories like this were kind of reasons why the world was so dangerous that stay inside where it's safe. Don't venture outside the village. Don't venture outside your yard. Stay where we can see you. And these stories have basically served as the backbone for fiction for girls ongoing, because then Walt Disney, because he had 2 daughters, he created animations based on the stories he thought his daughters could see, because that was the whole point. He made theme parks because his daughters liked the carousel, but he was bored stiff. It's little things like that. And so we have this ongoing fiction for girls that is discouraging them from being active participants in society by making it seem really, really, really scary. And that's where I think, Oron, those fantasies come from, is that buried in a lot of classic fairy tales are those sorts of fantasies. And it's a form of Stockholm syndrome, right? When you're constantly told by everybody around you, you wear that makeup, you're going to get raped. You wear that skirt, you're going to get raped. You stare at after dark, you're going to get raped. You hang around those crowd, you're going to get raped. You go down that alley, you're going to get raped. Eventually, your brain starts twisting around it so you become less afraid of it. And things get kind of twisted, and I think that might be, we are bombarded with these, if you get raped, it's your own damn fault messages. And then we're also told, well, it's the end of the world if you do get raped. So guess what? You're set up to fail before you even start. Because if you look at the statistics, like if you look at the messaging, and I'm sorry, no matter how much people claim otherwise, women do get blamed badly. Every decision is questioned. And that's what makes it different than just like a regular fist fight. Nobody like, why'd you do that? What were you thinking? You got your ass kicked, take your lumps. Different. At least where I come from. Okay. Sexual assault is a failure to protect women in our society. And so we spend an inordinate amount of energy protecting the female of the species, which means we don't become CEOs. We don't become heads of state. We don't become things that require leadership instead of protection. And this is something we should be addressing, and this is something we should be looking at, and something we should at least be questioning. I'm not saying that there has to be any firm answer to this, but we should be questioning why in this day and age where crime rates are relatively low and why we're still protecting our girls so vociferously as opposed to our boys. But then you see these modern fairy tales of campus rape where the statistics are, don't go into the woods. I remember we were at York. There's somebody there's another York U grad. Mark, did you know about the rape tunnel, or is that before your time? There was this underground tunnel that was supposed to be to jump from building to building in the cold. But it got called the rape tunnel, and so nobody used it. And this was around the same time apparently Jian Ghomeshi was like molesting dudes. That was another story that came out like that. But like I said, story. But this was a kind of thing, and I'm sorry, you can't totally focus on your studies if there's this sub-process, this rape prevention sub-process in your head. And I don't know, the guys can tell me, this is not something you worry about every time you leave the house at night, I'd assume. And this is a huge problem, because when we start saying these statistics that, 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted, that gives like, 1 in 4, you have my grandmother, my mother, my sister, and me. That's 4 women. That means one of us. This is now a rational fear when you start hearing statistics like that, when it's that high. Now, it's probably not that high, and that doesn't mean it's something that shouldn't be addressed as a public health issue, but we have a serious issue in this regard. So I hope that answered your question in sort of a roundabout way. And Mark, thank you. I saw your comment It's not a question, so I won't read it and, you know, backpat myself, but I appreciate your support. Esmeen asks, would I do an updated Gamergate video explaining your views on how things came to pass? Would love to point people to your explanation. What do you guys think? Because I just found, and I'll tell you why, because I'm open to hearing that times have changed. But the last time I did that, it just seemed to upset everyone. Everyone found one sentence in the entire piece that they didn't like, and they blew up, and I just had a whole bunch of people yelling at me. And it didn't really inform anybody from the feedback I got. It just made a bunch of people angry at me. And so I don't see the point. You know, like, fine, the outrage warriors are mad. I don't care about that. But it seemed to upset a lot of gamers. And that wasn't what I was trying to do. And so it just seems counterproductive. But I'm willing to hear that there's, you know, a more open-minded attitude about it now. It just seems to be too much of a garbage fire to bother touching. You know, I also don't want, again, the idea that I'm somehow trying to capitalize on Gamergate. I was accused of being a secret SJW, and that I just cared about the whole thing because I was becoming popular and getting a profile. It's funny because the people that were more embraced, there were people who were actually doing that, but I got accused of it for one reason or another, probably because I had one article published on Polygon, and how can somebody possibly be open-minded enough to see both sides? I kind of get that, but it just doesn't seem to accomplish anything. People are locked in their points of view, and so I could talk myself until I'm blue in the face. What's the point if nobody's listening? And then, you know, they'd have to be meticulously researched, and I don't necessarily have the time to do that because I'm working on Lady Bits. Hi, Keyflame. Jolly asks, would I be willing to work with Troy Leavitt again on something like this? Levitt, I always get his name wrong. He did a pretty good video on the timeline at Gamergate. I would. I mean, Troy was the one that got a job in the gaming industry and had to chill for a bit. Troy backed Lady Bits. So, and I'm saying that as disclosure because not very many. And the problem with Kickstarter is they allow people to use aliases. And so someone backed as the name Ken Levine, and it's a picture of Ken Levine of BioShock. But I don't know if it's actually Ken Levine. So that's a difficult disclosure one. Like, oh man, if I cover BioShock, do I have to disclose? But yeah, there were 2 or 3 game developers that actually backed it. I think Troy's great. I watched his, what was it? The one where he dealt with seduction of the innocent and, sort of the timeline. I haven't watched his Disposable Males one yet, the sort of like answer back to tropes, but I think it's a very clever format. So yes. See, Bryant, that's how I kind of feel, is that the minute you say Gamergate, everybody goes, ugh. And so I decided I'm not going to treat it like Voldemort. I'm going to say it when I'm referencing it, but I'm not going to dwell on it, so it doesn't control me one way or the other. But I agree, let's address the issues we have now. Because let's go issue to issue, as opposed to that sort of, group identity politics. What does secret SJW even mean? Krogan? Beats me. I'm not the one that said it. It's a twist on not really a gamer. And then when it turned out that no, I am really a gamer, whatever that means, they found something else to complain about. And then I'm a liar, and I'm just in it for the money, and I'm a shill. They always find some sort of amorphous accusation, and then when I did an AMA on Kotaku in Action, they didn't show up. And then a week later, they were right back to taking those pot shots. You know, when Lady Bits was announced, they're like, oh, these are easy questions. And of course, you know, for those of you who have been in the feedback sessions, they're anything but. They're actually pretty complicated. Even defining the terms every feedback session goes at least an hour and 20 minutes. They're that long. And they're deep conversations. Like, it's amazing, that thing that people claim can't be done, like these deep, respectful, challenging conversations about games happen every Wednesday in these feedback sessions for the people that back those tiers. And it's amazing. It's great stuff, but they will not. It's this asymmetric warfare with these guys that they won't have a conversation with me. They won't tell me the exact nature of their issue. It's basically, I did one thing 2 years ago or 3 things 3 years ago that they didn't like, and so it's war forever. They just look for names. And that's why I came up with this term outrage warrior, because I realized that there's, you know, extremists on the right and extremists on the left. Their tactics are exactly the same. Their targets might not be the same, but they're doing the same thing. It's just these amorphous accusations that, because there's so little detail, you can't really defend yourself against them. You know, for example, the one they did to me is, you're a transphobe. Well, no, I'm not. That's what all transphobes say. You know, they level this accusation, provide weak to no evidence, but then they just go, transphobe, 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 and they have enough of them. They have 15 people online calling you a transphobe on 4 different social media. And you have to defend yourself. You have to kind of guess. It's Kafka-esque. You have to guess exactly what your crime is, and they expect you to admit you're guilty. And I'm like, no. Because, you know, they're pressing up with me on this comedy thing. Because comedians never apologize for a joke. Because you have to accept, when you get into comedy, that jokes are going to bomb. But you don't apologize for the joke because, you know, that would be apologizing for trying. It is just a part of the process. And if you're going to start apologizing for jokes, quit now. Because everybody is every joke, somebody will not find you funny. People, I think, are the funniest freaking people in the world. There's people who can't stand them. Humor's very subjective, and so you have to get okay with that. And, you know, the whole transphobia thing, there was some stupid thing before this, but I was joking around with the Feline Frequency account, and I said my dog is trans-species. He uses the scratching post and plays with catnip mice. Can he be part of felinism? And Feline Frequency comes back, all cats are cats. And I said, that's the answer I'm looking for. Thank you. That was transphobic. A metaphor based on this Twitter account shtick that was actually a pro-trans message was transphobic, because in their warped up, miserable minds, I was comparing a trans person to an animal. First of all, if you know anything about me, that's high praise. But also, are you fucking out of your mind? But it's amazing how quickly this stuff becomes real. Right? People just heard I'm transphobic. They heard it. They don't know quite what it's about, but they don't want to be seen associating with me because they don't want to get labeled with transphobia either. But, you know, this secret SJW, this shill, this pro-victim, this cuck, all this stuff that the extreme right does, it's no different. It's the exact same tactics with different words. And I got no time for that. And so, you know, people are like, why don't you debate this person? Why don't you debate this person? Well, because they engage in those tactics. And, well, it might be great for clicks. It might be great for views. I would feel dirty afterwards. I would feel like I betrayed my own principles. And I feel like I'd be letting you guys down, because you guys continue to come back here and we talk every week, because we don't do that here, right? And even though I'm swearing more than usual and being a little bit more blunt than usual because I'm fucking tired, we're still not there, right? We're still, people are people and people are humans, and we treat humans like humans and animals. Because in my next life I want to come back as a cat. Like, seriously, can we make this happen? Cats have the best freaking lives. I want to be a cat. Whoa! Now that I didn't see coming. I don't know if this is a troll question. Okay. These are troll questions. Okay, Duder, you're new. Enrique Suave. But I'm going to ignore you. And if the chat finds you too annoying, I do get rid of people. Don't derail. Please don't. Thank you. Yeah, Time to Japan, kind of the secret SJW. Like, you claim to be on our side, but you're just like Anita, but pretending to be nice. And it's like, well, I understood the fundamental complaint with the whole feminist frequency thing is they seem to hate gamers. It's not that people have any issue with people having different opinions or people having, you know, specific games they like or don't like. Just don't attack us, please. Like, tone is the entire problem. Actually, it's not just tone, it's message as well. But the fact that they are misrepresenting gaming to the point of cruelty is the entire problem I understood with feminist frequency. So saying you're just like Anita but nice, well, that means I'm not like Anita. But Time to Japan's right. I hear that over and over and over again. And Oberon, that's how I feel too. If you get pot shots, it means they don't have real shots. And I'm not interested in bothering with that. Yeah, Yosei said, you're almost constantly doing live streams where you answer almost every question in-depth, recklessly, often while tired. If you've managed to put on a fake persona through all of that, you're pretty much Russian spy tier. And that's, then the next commenter says, well, you are a ginger, you gotta admit that. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for letting me know that, Samuel, about Quiet. I'll look into that. I really like Kojima, for people who have not been here before. And thanks to Bait Examinations. There's a lot of discussion about Quiet within the game community, because the general consensus is Kojima is brilliant and he takes risks. And when you get designers together, especially female designers, and they're kind of like, yeah, but that, I'm like, look, doing an experiment that didn't work is not the same as just making a fan servicey, you know, junk. And I'm not saying all fan service is junk. I'm saying like bad fan service. And they have to admit that, yeah, okay. And the conversation calms down a lot after that, because everybody's, if you do any sort of art for a living, everybody is in a position where you do something and it just doesn't work. I know I have been there. I try things that don't work. I back away. I try things it wasn't intended. I mean, I've talked a bit about them, you know, the Gamergate stuff, that it just didn't have the intended effect. I missed the mark somehow. And so I stopped doing it, because I don't think you should create art necessarily for effect. But if you're trying to do something to make people happy and it makes too many people unhappy, well, then you change it. I mean, we all kind of know that his next game is Naked Norman Reedus. So maybe it's just like Quiet with 100% more penis, you know? That is a different approach, and Kojima's a bit of a troll, so wouldn't that be funny? I'm really looking forward to Death Stranding. I just think, wow, you know? Sweeter again, I think the gaming industry feels like they're chasing phantoms by pandering to SJW ideology, but not seeing a notable increase in fandom when they do. Here's the problem with the games industry. The games industry is terrified of the press. And it was actually Troy that explained this to me. There is a wall, as he explained it, between game developers and the media. Game developers very rarely have direct contact with the press. It goes through publicists. And so if game developers make a comment that the outrage warriors take offense to, they're chastised by HR, they hear about it from their bosses, PR starts going, yeah, 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 yeah. And the problem with PR is, I don't know if you guys saw that scene in Silicon Valley that where they hired the best PR people, and because they had the best PR people, they had to create a product that was easy to sell, or else they'd quit and go somewhere else. It's true. And so when the PR people are saying, well, we have this backlash and this backlash and this backlash, instead of doing what every other industry does, which is, you know, if you're selling cleaning products, yeah, you don't want people offended. But South Park pisses off everybody because you only need this core. I mean, look at the games that sell redonkulous number of units. I mean, things like Grand Theft Auto and The Witcher and these really, like some would say, offensive games. They are what they are, and their fan base loves them for it. But there's this sort of collective blame in gaming right now that those individual titles are the ones that everybody hears about, because for some odd reason the mainstream cannot understand that there's a very deep well. There's a lot of different types of games beyond Grand Theft Auto, and like it's ridiculous, the idea that one TV show, you know, South Park defines all of television. Of course it doesn't. But Grand Theft Auto is supposed to define all of gaming, and I am not convinced that's not deliberate on the part of, because TV is afraid of gaming, because you only have one set of eyes, and more people are playing video games, which means they're watching TV less. Or if you're like me, you play RimWorld while binge watching The Wire. That's what I've been doing. Film is the other hand. Oh, that's a lower form of entertainment. Oh no, when you make a video game into a film, you have to recognize that it is now a film, and you have to put things in them because it's a film. And that's precisely what audiences tend not to like, the stuff they added to dope it down, because they thought film audiences don't understand, you know, the basic premise of Assassin's freaking Creed. So every game publisher has like this dual duty: get sales, advocate for the industry as a whole. Unfortunately, the things that tend to get sales is the stuff Grand Theft Auto does. That doesn't play so well in that advocacy thing, so it's tough. It's every so often you get PlayStation's great for managing to do both. You know, The Last of Us sold really well, and everybody but Anita Sarkeesian seems to think that's a great step forward. You know, Horizon Zero Dawn kicked ass, so they're doing a really good job on their exclusives, but I don't think that every game should have to think about, you know, is this a shunda for the non-gamers? If somebody wants to make a horribly bloody, aggressive, offensive game because they have something to say in that regard, they should be able to do it. And if there's an interest for that game, then have at it. You know, it's just pixels. Like, it's just an idea. It's not actually going out and killing people. Oh, somebody gave me money. Thank you, B, whoever you are. I'm sure I'll get down. I'm way behind. Okay, if I skipped your question, please rephrase it. Ben Brody, thank you so much. Okay, I have to catch up to the chat now. Yeah, Mr. Fizzy quoted Leanna's law, which is sales in video games tend to be inversely proportional to fucks given about outrage. And I think it's interesting that, I mean, what was the Lady Tara Joe pointed out, kind of, do you notice the one game that Anita Sarkeesian had nothing bad to say about was Beyond Good and Evil? And Ubisoft releases a trailer that just like, that old Beyond Good and Evil is dead. Like, the new Beyond Good and Evil 2, New Hotness is bang bang motherfucker, right? Like, just freaking. You know what's interesting, Terex? GTA is based on movies. GTA is part of that cinematic crime fiction thing. So, GTA already is a movie in a lot of ways. Like, GTA is very much inspired by American film, which is why I don't understand why everybody freaks out the way they do about it. Because, yeah, all those things you're saying about Grand Theft Auto are true, but it is drawing from a film tradition that people laud as brilliant in a lot of ways. I mean, Pulp Fiction is in the same tradition, right, of films. Natural Born Killers, films like that. They're all The Godfather in a lot of ways. The Untouchables. This is all what GTA is drawing from. So, you know, oh, that's interesting, Oron, that she was actually saying it's great and people were giving her shit for it. She really has a blind spot when it comes to that franchise. I mean, the thing is, Beyond Good and Evil didn't sell. It had some very interesting sci-fi elements to it. It was slow as shit. Ah, interesting. YouTube messages? I don't. I go in every so often because a lot of it is just you are hot and porn links. So yeah, Alexander. No, Twitter's probably better. But we do these feedback sessions, so I am right in your face. You are right in my face, and that's why we do it. And then Twitter, yeah, and Facebook through the Facebook group. My Facebook group, I answer messages much quicker there than I do on YouTube, just because YouTube messages are like, they don't send email notifications, and YouTube is not very user friendly. I don't understand. Really, Oron? You got quoted? She pretends like I don't exist. So that's really interesting. Blaine, why not eat sausage while playing Zelda? Rati, have you played Papers, Please? Because, you know, the game where you play a starving farmer in the Soviet Union, you play a starving customs agent in the Soviet Union. I actually, yes, I did hear about Linkin Park, Terex. We talked about that earlier. I played Derek. I always forget. It was one of the Vampire the Masquerade. I think it was Redemption. That's the game that made me hate Activision for a really, really long time because their customer support on it sucked. It would only run on like 6 video cards ever in the world. And if you didn't have one of those video cards, they wouldn't help you out at all. And they wouldn't take the game back. And I was like, fuck you, Activision, fuck you. And I admit, even though I loved my Skylanders and was Activision? Yeah, Activision was the parent company for Sierra now, and they did the King's Quest thing. They do some good stuff, but in my heart of hearts, I'm still like, Activision. I feel about Activision the same way a lot of people feel about EA. Although I'm getting there with EA. But yeah, that's my totally gamer nerd reason of why I just have an aversion to Activision. It is completely irrational. I understand that. But this is why I kind of understand why things went boom and why people respond the way they did, because Activision did not help me when I had a customer complaint. And so part of me hates them forever. And so I understand how important this is. Whereas Sony, when I tried to download, I think it was Uncharted 3, yeah, don't try to do that because on the PS3 at least, you needed double the hard drive space that the game would actually take up to do it. And my old bubble, I had like a G1 PS3. Yeah, it didn't have that much hard drive space. And so I borked everything. And I called them up and explained what happened. It was totally my fault, but they refunded my money. And I went out that day and I bought a box copy of the game and I was happy. And now I'm like, Sony, you are awesome. I will use your download service again because if I fuck up, you are there to help me. And Wayfair is really good that way too. The furniture delivery thing that pretty much decorated the entire Ladybit set because I ordered on internets, they're really good that way too. But good customer service matters so much. Yeah, too much about me. More questions. Sorry, Panda, that was funny. This is a game to experience communism is just to take away toilet paper. First thing to go bye-bye in communist takeover. Although, I had the opposite experience. The, when I was in Costa Rica, you could do day tours into Nicaragua. And they warned you going over there, if you're going to use the bathrooms in Nicaragua, bring toilet paper. They actually stop before you cross the border and allow you to use the bathrooms on the Costa Rican side because Nicaragua is a, I was going to say shit show, but that's a little too literal. And you have to pay for everything in Nicaragua because it's the capitalist side. Costa Rica is very socialist, so everything's very clean and stable and clean and safe and all that stuff. Shit not given in the service industry, but very clean. You go over to Nicaragua, and they can't do enough for you, but they expect a tip for everything. The kids that hung around the market as guides knew that most Americans don't eat their apples. So one of the few English words they knew is apple, apple. They stood outside the bus going, apple, apple. So they'd get the free apple from the tourists from the bag lunch. And I ate my apple. The lunch was a ham and cheese sandwich. So my husband and I lived off that apple. And we bought like something in the market. It was delicious. My husband's pretty sure it was iguana. But because they call it jungle chicken down there. Capitalism is not, like, unchecked capitalism doesn't work for every country. So that was an interesting experience. But yeah, there was no toilet paper on the capitalist side in that case. So moving on, enough about me. Of Abram asked, can someone with millions of followers really be called an amateur? And following that logic, can you call his jokes bad if they are good enough to make him this successful? Who? Sorry. Of Abram. Who are we talking about there? Goblin Hero, I think it's weird. I swear I responded to that email, and I swear I responded to it twice, but I'll answer here because I apologize for that. Goblin Hero sent me an email about the whole healthy sexuality and sexual objectification, and just so you guys have a bit of background, the most fascinating part of that session was we actually tried to define the pillars of healthy sexuality, because objectification has markers. We didn't have any markers for healthy sexuality, and we didn't want to go, the equivalent of prostate owners and non-prostate owners. We didn't want state and then absence of the state. We actually wanted to define what healthy sexuality was. And what we actually found was there's actually a big gulf between healthy sexuality and objectification, which I've called, the fast food drive-through of sex. It's good every so often, but you don't want to make a steady diet of it. But what Goblin Hero was asking about was the idea of objectification forcing people into this subject-object or subject-observer dichotomy, and it being false. And I think it's actually especially false in gaming, but in all media. I mean, one thing I had to learn was that when you first get into media, and I know I'm talking about myself again, but sometimes I feel the most honest way I can explain something is talking about my own experiences of being in the media. But you do go through this period where you don't feel like a human being anymore. You feel like a commodity because it's so fake. Like the hair extensions and the bronzer and the this and then that and the crazy dieting and the shoes that hurt, stuff is ridiculous, but it's the trend and this is what the clothing sponsor sent, so squeeze your ass into it. I could never get pants that fit. That was my ugh. But what you eventually learn if you make it through that, if you do sort of the Ishtar and the underworld journey into the other side, is that with that sort of dehumanization also comes a huge amount of power. And this is where objectification theory, gaze theory kind of goes off the rails, because this is what it doesn't acknowledge. I had to figure out that you can't go one-on-one with you guys in the chat. You know, I say, hey, there's one of me, there's a billion of you, like, whoa, go easy, slow down, sort of thing sometimes. And yeah, that's fair. But one thing you have to recognize was, when you're in the media, if somebody comes and starts swearing at you and coming on really aggressive and things like that, you can't respond in kind, because that's like, you know, using a D&D reference again, I know, but you don't use your strongest spell on the little goblin henchman to the, you know, to the area boss. You save your more powerful fire for the things that need it. And I think that what objectification theory regarding media, what gaze theory and things like that have done, have given people a lacking perception of it, and so they look like jackholes because they go at people so hard. You're this, you know, and then they're like, why are you being a jerk? I'm not to him, and you talk to me this way, and you're a garbage human, and it doesn't work. Because you're the one whose face they see. You're the one with the power. It's your channel. I have the ban button. I have the ban hammer. I can kick anybody out of the chat I want. Now, we had an issue a few weeks ago where they just kept coming back. It was amazing how many alt YouTube accounts this guy had. But you have to recognize that. And the first rule of living a powerful life is embrace your freaking power. Like, that's a gamer thing. You collect weapons and you know, spells and everything, that you have to learn to use them judiciously. I guess I play a lot of ammo hoarders, so I kind of understand, like, hey, use the smallest tool for the job so you have the big stuff for the boss, right? And that's kind of what my answer was. So now you've got it, finally. It took. Sweetra asks, do I also wonder if some like Anita truly ever... I'm going to stop saying her name because, oh my god. Harassment! Look at the storylines of characters I criticize. I would expect them tactical character like the original Katana. Again, the form of criticism they're using doesn't allow story. And that is a big problem when you're talking about games, because context matters so thoroughly. And so what they're used to doing, I know this drove me crazy at York. Oh my god. We were doing the book Alice in Wonderland. And it was a scene study. It was a close read. And you weren't allowed to bring in anything that happened before or anything that happened after. You just had to do a close read of the scene. And I looked at my professor, I'm like, this is stupid. Why are you making me forget what... And I realize now the exercise was learn this technique, learn how to do technique so you're consistent. But I just thought it was the most... I find the whole literature approach where you cannot use, you know, the fact that Mervyn Peake was schizophrenic, or that George Orwell was a medic in the Spanish Civil War, you know, or that J.R.R. Tolkien was heavily influenced by his war experiences. No, that's not on the page, so you can't use it. And my advice is, why the fuck not? It's potentially relevant. Well, that's a humanities approach, and that was the biggest insult in the English program. That's a humanities approach, is basically you're stupid and you smell. So the problem, Sweetra, is with the analytical traditions she's using. And so she kind of uses character arcs when it's convenient, but she is doing that close read thing where, oh, Ellie's in one bad situation in one part of the game, instead of going, look, overall the character's freaking awesome and I am not going to complain about this because overall, good job, you know? So that's kind of what's going on there. Oh, of Abram. Okay, you guys were talking about PewDiePie as amateur comedian. Oh, wow. Okay. This might get me into trouble. PewDiePie, there's a big thing in comedy where they give anybody a really hard time who doesn't come up through the clubs. So they gave me a really hard time. But the whole idea is you come up through the clubs, you have the bad nights, you earn it. You put in your time. And PewDiePie didn't do the YouTube equivalent of going through the clubs. He got really big really fast. Ni no Kuni is great, by the way, Patches. It takes a while to open up, but oh my god. What a beautiful game. Just from a visual design sense and just wandering around in that world. Loved it. A little light on RPG stuff, but I'm digressing. PewDiePie got really big really quick, and this happens with a lot of YouTubers. YouTubers start to panic the minute they sort of plateau or they get a little decrease. And they start doing outrageous things to try to get their subscribers back. It's weird. Watching your subscriber count and watching number of views can be quite an addictive process. You know, if you see it start slipping, as it kind of does naturally certain times of year, oh my god, you anything to get another fix, you know, right? Like, get the vein, need traffic. It's really unhealthy. I've been through, like, music programming, conservative talk radio, late night TV, games writing. Now I'm doing this. Documentary. I even worked with a sideshow. Theater, competitive dance. I've worked in a lot of media, and so I am more sort of about the whole thing, so I don't need that fix. And I think that PewDiePie is an amateur comedian. But as you pointed out, he's an amateur comedian making a lot of money. That's the wrong defense for PewDiePie. Amateur, not amateur. He told a bad joke. People didn't like it. Noted. You bombed. The problem is, if you bomb in a club, it's 50 people, if you're lucky. If you bomb on YouTube, you bomb in front of potentially 50 million people. And that's the thing. And I think required reading for anybody who wants to do any sort of performing is Steve Martin's Born Standing Up, because he talks about sort of those bad shows and the difference between doing a little comedy club and doing these big arena shows, and how he completely had to change his act to do shows where your audience is 35,000 people who you are this big to them on the stage. They're watching on a screen. You do have to, you know, as Marshall McLuhan said, the media is the massage. You do have to sort of really understand the mediums you're working in so you can put your best face forward so people get what you do. And if you don't understand that, which I don't think PewDiePie did, because, I mean, let's face it, he sat there drinking energy drinks, screaming and singing to survival horror games. The guy got so lucky. And from what I've heard, he's actually the nicest guy in the world, which is why it so sucks that he's become like King Shitlord because of a couple of videos. But that's why when you start making any sort of real money, invest and buy a house. So when shit goes boom, as it does for everybody, most people anyway, you have a fallback. You actually have investments that you can live off of through the lean years. We really do need some business advisors for YouTubers that aren't these MCNs that are gouging people, because it's a serious thing. But that's what I kind of think. So I absolutely see your point. I agree with you. There's just, like every question on Feedback Friday, there's more to it. Have you noticed I really hate reductive answers? I could just say yes or no, but I try to elaborate. Potato infections. I don't know what that is. Wow, I saw something out of questions. Oh, you responded, Goblin Hero? Okay. I'll check that out. I haven't gotten that yet. Oh, I need a coffee. Oh, faux name is quoting Fred Penner. That is Fred Penner, right? The cat came back the very next day. The cat came back. We thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. He just wouldn't stay away. And then the coolest thing when I was 6 is all the kids then when he was playing, he's going, give me a meow. And you'll go, meow. And yeah, that was awesome when I was a kid. Because musical performers actually used to go to schools back in the day. Sharon Lotus and Bram and Fred Penner and stuff like that. And schools had enough money that they could pay for that. Believe it or not. The good old days. Yeah, Roti, I agree. He said PewDiePie's magic is his total connection to meme culture and his ability to put strange quirks and spins on things. He's also amazing at telling bad jokes. Some people can do that. Yeah, he says YOLO, and people still love him. I admit, every time I see a battery lying on the ground, I'm like, batteries! Because of his freaking Outlast videos. But he is very good at memes, sure. He also connected with his fan base before some social media person went, you should connect with your fan base. And it seemed really artificial with, you know, showing the fan art and really bringing his, you know, younger fan base into things. He can't do it the same way I can because you can't have 13 year olds in a free-for-all the way we do it here. But he has some skills, so the people managing him had skills that, like I said about Fox News, it's, he has skills. Like, there's something about him people like. Oh, Mr. Dress Up, Goblin Hero. Yes, I actually got to meet Mr. Dress Up at the Ryerson Awards. He's a very nice man. They actually have the Mr. Dress Up treehouse down at the CBC. I really liked Mr. Dress Up. I mean, I liked anything that was kind of messed up and weird like that, and the puppets were so... Like, it was Mr. Dress Up and Friendly Giant and stuff like that. I think that those sort of random kid shows that we used to get, again, when there was money to do this stuff, I think that tradition had a similar appeal to stuff like Super Mario with the kind of weird and random stuff and, you know, Miyazaki's work and things like that. What I like about all that stuff is they put something in and not bother to explain it. It's just their deal. There were a couple shows. You guys have probably seen the meme Anana. It's like this pineapple puppet with these big bulgy eyes. That was from a French-Canadian show called Télé Français. Télé Français. Télé Français. Télé Français. And it was very repetitive scenarios to teach French grammar and things like that. And so where Anana came from was it was these two kids who were in a junkyard and this woman courier landed a plane, but Anana was sitting there on this like old busted car. And it's like, salut! Salut! Tu es Anana! Je suis Anana. Anana ne parle pas. Anana ne parle pas. And so it was pineapples do not talk. And it was the negative conjugation of the verb. And it went on and on like that. But now to see Anana as a meme, it's funny. This was what I grew up on. Okay, that and Read Along, which was this puppet show with Shoe and Boot that taught kids to read. And then there was Today's Special, where a department store thought nothing of there being a mouse as a main character. And then there was this mannequin who you put on this magic hat, and he turned into a very gay man. But yeah, this was the kind of stuff they made back then, and it was awesome. But yeah, it's funny to see this as a meme now, this weird little French-Canadian show. Oh, man. My favorite rock band of all time. Oh. Sorry. I'll jump back to phone name. Did me or Ed ever have run-ins or jobs on YTV? Pitched to YTV a few times. Know people from YTV. That's about where it ended. YTV was a dirty word at Much Music because it was kind of competition. And so when a producer or a manager wanted to shoot down an idea and didn't want to tell you why or didn't really have a good reason, it was always, well, that's fine for YTV. Hiss. And it's like, well, you know, maybe part of the reason you're so threatened is YTV's kind of kicking your ass right now. And YTV's still around now, and Much Music's kind of not. So, good story. Oh, the Uncle Bobby show, too. Oh, wow. Oh, sorry, back to Tarek's question about favorite rock band. This is so tough because define rock band. When I answer this question, people go, that's not a rock band. Because a lot of the rock bands that I listened to when I was like a teenager were actually alternative bands, things like Pearl Jam, Nine Inch Nails, Nirvana, stuff like that. Soundgarden. But I guess my rock band, and I don't even consider this band a rock band. I consider Aerosmith a pop band that plays rock and roll. But I love their blues inspired guitar, like the like I love that they have that kind of bass line going on, like that. It's music, you know. I mean, some people consider Billy Joel rock and roll, and I don't. He's a pop artist, you know. So rock is like hesitant to answer question because of definition, but yeah, I mean, my favorite kind of punk band is a band called Go-Go Bordello. There's another one called Sons and Daughters out of Glasgow that, oh, what the fuck was that album? Forget the name, but they had this, the single was a song called Dance Me In, but it's one of my less favorite songs on the album. The Repulsion Box, that's what it's called. Great little album. By Sons and Daughters, and then Go-Go Bordello's gypsy, they call it gypsy punk. Was it Underdog World Strike? You may have seen the lead singer in a movie called Everything is Illuminated with Elijah Wood and Eugene and Liev Schreiber. That's where I discovered them, and I checked out their album, and I went to see them live, and they are crazy and awesome, and everything punk music should be, and so often isn't. So continuing with the questions. Oh, I hate that it jumps. Thank you, Mr. Fizzy. With Doctor Who being a woman, do I think they will make the mistake of Ghostbusters 2016 wrote and blame the audience for backlash rather than bad writing or too much focus on social progress? It's possible. Hopefully, this will breathe new life into the series. If they do the crap writing that they did on the Capaldi stuff, yeah, it's not going to save it. John Linneball. Oh, you're talking about Hilarious House of Frightenstein, John. It was the guys who danced to music early in the morning. I think it was on... was it on CBC? I don't think it was CBC. But one was Frankenstein, and the other was like Uncle Fester. They also did science things. That was a show called Hilarious House of Frightenstein. And one of the guys actually lives kind of down the street from me. It's kind of cool. They're cool people. That was a great show. Do I play a musical instrument? Patch's ass. I used to play the drums. My hands can't handle it anymore. I also played the tenor sax. I tried to play the guitar, but I don't have my pinky finger is too small and gimpy to press down on the smallest string. And I played the ukulele. I can play 4-string instruments, or I could before my hands took a crap. But I could play 4-string because you don't need the pinky finger. So I played like ukulele and banjo and stuff like that. Played recorder. Again, pianos. Tiny little stubby hands. Not so much. Liked it. But love the sound of a harpsichord. But yeah, that's what I used to do. Do I think the position of being a reviewer is sometimes abused by people who want to spread agendas and views under the guise of informing people about products? I don't think they're doing that deliberately, but I think that definitely is a risk. My sort of rule of thumb on social issues and game reviews is if you spend more than 3 sentences on it, you are wasting the audience's time, because the longer your review is, the less likely people are to read it, sad but true. And so you really have to be careful on that social stuff, because, and in part because people haven't played the game yet. So if you want to do a post-launch piece, the problem is most of the time you're not allowed to do that piece, so people do the op-ed they want to do in a review because they've been given the review. They need to submit the review. They have to submit the review, and so they can get away with putting opinion on a secondary issue in a game review. And so they abuse it that way, because editorial has to loosen up and sometimes let people write pieces just because they're really passionate about it. I mean, I don't get it. Like, I think it's like, look, we'll pay you half, or I think this is why I think people should be on salaries, not per piece things, because if somebody wants to create additional content for you, oh, what a horrible thing, additional content. But you would be amazed at how many times I've said to a gaming website, like, look, I'll just give this to you for free, just run it. No, because that conflicts with this or that. Like, you guys are content dumps. The more content you have, the better. But no, they have an editorial direction. And so people sneak stuff into reviews for that reason. Oh, Scarfy, I missed your super chat thing before. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. Oh, you just did it. That's why I missed it. Oh boy, all over the place today. But thank you for that. So yeah, you're not wrong about that. Oh, Scarfy likes the Breitbarting term. That's awesome. Yeah, it does happen. And for me, my rule of thumb is if you're spending more than 3 sentences on a theme, a thematic related comment, you are going into the weeds, because it doesn't help the consumer. They haven't played the game yet. So I'll say something like, and I'll try not to color the experience for someone. So, because to me, I think that cautioning somebody who may have sensitivities to stay away from a game is a good thing. Saying the game is inherently bad because it touches on that sensitivity is not. So, people who have issues with sort of casual misogyny may want to avoid this one. That's one thing I might say. Or people who have issues with animals being harmed is another. But I don't say the game is horrible because it has that. And by casual misogyny, I mean like people calling Catwoman a bitch. That bothers some people. That doesn't bother other people. My job as a game reviewer is to inform people it's there. Don't cast a judgment on it being there. That's different than something like, Metal Gear 5, where Quiet's an experiment that doesn't quite work, in my opinion. That's fair to say, because you're judging the quality of it. And I think that can actually enhance the experience for somebody. They go in and go, okay, I don't expect this to be good, so their expectations are appropriate, and so they like the game more. If that's the case, I think I've done my job, because I think a lot of games that are flawed but still worthwhile aren't served by the review process, because people go, oh, 7.5, that sucks. Nothing below an 8 is even worth our time. And some of those games can be really, really interesting. They're just not quite there for whatever reason. And that's an unfortunate thing about the lack of tolerance for sort of mid-reviewed games, because we don't have that in movies, right? When you see 3 stars out of 5, you think, oh, that's still pretty good. That's the equivalent of a 6 out of 10 in a video game. Like, put that in perspective. Passing grade for movies is 6 out of 10. Passing grade for a movie is for TV is basically 4 stars in a movie. You don't see that very often. So, because movies are sort of more mature and people kind of recognize that 3 is kind of a pass. Like, that's what it should be. A passing grade should be, this is worth it. But that's not how game reviews work. And I think it kind of sucks. Blaine, we actually did do Ed the Sock condoms back in the day. But we stopped making them because we found out they were actually novelty condoms and had to tell people, now don't actually use these. And it was so awkward. Oh, you do stand-up patches. That's awesome. Polka Dot Door. Zoobledy Zoo. I didn't watch a lot of Zoobledy Zoo. I did watch the Polka Dot Door. Pokeroo! I like Rammstein too, Alexander. One of my proudest achievements on Much Music was Mountain Dew sponsored an all-night, it was actually till 3 in the morning, flow session because they were relaunching as an energy drink. And they wanted to do this, powered by Dew thing. And because, it was midnight to 3 a.m. And there were some videos that we could never play because they were all flagged post-midnight. They were basically rated, it's like AO in video game parlance, meaning no one will carry it, because post-9 meant you could run it and it wouldn't replay. But post-midnight, nobody was on air post-midnight. There were no live programs. It was a repeat, because what happened back in the day, it still happens on some cable channels. We do 8 hours of programming and just repeat it twice. And so you had to be careful with that post-9 stuff, because if it repeated at 2 p.m., you got in trouble. But, so post-midnight was stuff like Rammstein and Gwar, and those were the 2 I remember, because I'm like, oh my god, if I can get Gwar and Rammstein played on Much Music, this is... I have done something good for this earth. And the Gwar video passed fairly easily. I mean, Gwar's just silly, right? It's like wrestling mixed with Rocky Horror Picture Show and Kiss. But Rammstein was interesting. I wanted to play Rosenrot because, whoa, that's intense. Like, it was, remember that fairy tale thing and molestation and all that stuff? They were actually using a part of Germanic culture, and it was a brilliant video that nobody really knew what was going on. I was like, oh my god, this is actually really super smart and educated, because those guys really are. They're super educated. And they said no because of the abuse thing. The video they let us play was the one for Du Hast that was just a bunch of well-oiled, hard-bodied, naked guys just writhing around with each other. And that was considered better than this really heavy, like, fairy tale fable that kind of implied child abuse but didn't really show anything. And, we were kind of like, this is how the media works. But most of the people making the decisions here were gay men, and so I think they just kind of approved the video that they liked better. Because objectively, there was a lot more artistry and commentary to Rosenrot than Du Hast. And I'm going, okay, roll it. And I feel like I just accidentally trolled Much Music by, like, slipping an unintentional poison pill, and so we ended up just playing writhing, sweaty guys. Du Hast, This is my life, people. Like, we did, but I'm like, this is awesome. What? Like, that's rock and roll. Just anti-establishment, playing the stuff we're not supposed to play. Sorry, Sweetra, it jumped again. Thanks, Phoname. I miss Fromage too. It's just been too hard to do. The chat jumped, obviously. Um, but on Much Music, we had the clearance for the videos. Now, if we made it, we'd get DMCA'd and content striked all over the place. So it's too bad. Donkey video? I've heard about this thing, and I have not watched it. I don't think I've watched it. I Googled it the other day. Hang on. And somebody else asked about, I think, Andy Worski. I'm vaguely familiar with that. Not terribly so. I admit I have been down a hole because I've been working on Lady Bits. So that is my awareness of those two questions. Of Abramass, do I think some of the lack of middling reviews for games is due to the higher price? So for the same price, you got to be pickier with games than movies, which are much cheaper by comparison. Excuse me. I think that's true to an extent, that people are choosier. Also, games take longer to play. But I think it's also that just films have been around longer, and we have been conditioned to go, oh, 3 out of 5 means it's okay. 4 out of 5 means it's amazing. 5 out of 5 means best movie ever, right? Whereas okay is our 8 in games, which doesn't give a critic a lot of wiggle room to actually distinguish good, better, best. And I think that actually ends up just rewarding games that don't innovate, but they refine exceptionally well, if that makes any sense. Yeah, Odysseus, exactly. Duhast was a big pun on wedding vows, and they played that. They didn't know what was going on. Oh, Tool was great as well. I like Tool's videos. How is Lady Bits going? Well, I always feel like I'm behind. I've lost a couple of weeks to social commitments. I have to go be social again tonight. And I like the people, but I don't like being social. So, and it's not that I don't like being, social. It's that the people I know in real life don't really play many video games, so I don't have anything to talk about. But it is going well. The feedback sessions are awesome. It's just struggling with the writing right now of really getting it down and trying to get as many ideas as possible. The Lara Croft episode is probably the most research heavy because I have to actually go back and replay the games. It's going well. I'm just always like, oh, I want it to be good. So I'm really hard on myself, on this stuff. So that's what's at right now. Sorry, I missed a bunch of things here. Am I surprised that none of the Outrage Warriors went after Gail Simone's take on Red Sonja, where a classic backstory is retconned and she's written as a more promiscuous character? I don't think they read it, personally. Because, yeah, I love Gail. I love Gail. Can I tease us with any sexy outfits I intend to wear on Lady Bits? I don't know how sexy they're going to be. Sexy's in the eye of the beholder. That's a messaging thing. Like, there's gonna be little snippets, but it's not gonna be. It's gonna be kind of like what I wore in the video, the Kickstarter video. And if you think that's sexy, awesome. The other stuff is sort of going to be little flashes, because what I don't want is for people to sort of be able to attack it based on what I'm wearing, which is not fair, but it's true. And I want there to be enough kind of sizzle and color and everything like that so that people who are interested in that sort of thing get something. But also, I don't want to go back into that place where I had to diet like crazy to do all those calendars and everything like that. So that is, like, I'd have to just not have any wine between now and October if I was going to go full-blown, like, calendar chainmail bikini stuff. So it will be in between, because I want to be able to drink. I need to be able to drink. Beelzebub will appear in Lady Bits, for sure. That's cool, Mr. Fizzy, that you're taking game design. Sorry, yawning. You know, Joseph, it's funny. Joseph said, only in the video game industry can research be, I'm going to be online for 5 hours playing my game. And that's the real balance you have to get into as a game reviewer, because you end up playing a game you have to play. Like right now, I'm picking through the Tomb Raider games because I have to play them. But those games are, I pretty much put up a walkthrough because I want to blow through them fast, because a lot of those games is farting around, and when you want to get it done because work and you're trying to do game capture, that's annoying. And then afterwards, I keep, like, while I'm playing Tomb Raider, all I want to be doing is playing RimWorld. But then I know that I need to exercise. Like, I need to get cardio and stretching and everything like that. So what I do is I put my exercise bike up, and so I pedal while I'm playing RimWorld. So I get my RimWorld fix, and then I put down my mat and I do my stretches and everything like I have to do for my knee. Because if I don't do my bike, my knee gets messed up because of that injury and surgery and all that stuff. So I have to do this stuff, but there just aren't enough hours in the day. And then it's like, oh my God, I've sat the whole day. I need to get up and move. So I end up cooking because cooking is doing something. And at the end, you have food. There needs to be a purpose for everything that I do, which is why I think I'm a gamer, is that you do all this stuff because at the end you win. Exercise, like doing a treadmill or doing videos or all that stuff, you don't win at the end. I need winning. So I gotta beat the game. So it's weird, that mindset of you're playing this one game that you have to, because you have to, but you're looking at the game you want to play. And that's a weird thing about being a gamer and a game reviewer, that I actually like this stuff. Oh, thanks, George. That was very generous. Are games that aim for a grown-up audience good, bad, man for the industry? I think we should have games for a grown-up audience. And then games for kids. And there should be games for men. And there should be games for women. And this is the whole point, that it is only in, well, no, film is still really bad, that blockbuster films are seen as primarily for men. Gaming is better than that, personally. I think you get to pick characters and all that stuff in certain games. But I love adult games. I really think there's a place for them based on the average gamer's age waffling between 30 and 38-ish. There's a place for it. So we should have adult games. They should be clearly labeled. And, I love that we have a voluntary rating system. That's what I think. I think they're great. Oh, wow. Everybody's talking about, like, really cool bands. There's a treadmill. There's a gaming treadmill. Seriously? I gotta Google this. Because my treadmill is, like, busted. So if this is a real thing, oh, it's virtual reality. Oh, that's kind of cool. Huh. Neat. I'd still find a way to wreck myself with that, but this is a cool idea. See, I liked the idea of the Kinect. I'm actually thinking about getting like a Kinect yoga thing. Yes, I use the Kinect. I love Dance Central. Don't judge. What my goal, my win after my knee surgery was, that was right when Dance Central 3 was coming out, and I wanted to be able to beat Dance Central 3. That's how I knew that I had, done enough rehab on it, was that I could play Dance Central 3 again. Because when I hurt my knee, I had to stop doing so much because it was just too hard. I did get through it. I'm not able to gold star dances anymore, but I am able to 5-star most of them. So I was pretty happy about that. That's how I won that. Yes. Are blockbuster movies still marketed to men? Personally, I've seen the recent dominance of Marvel CU driven primarily for women. See, Disney is really good at having something for everybody. That is Disney's model. They're and you're welcome, Jan. Disney isn't a class of its own. Disney has its own marketing thrust. They always market everything for families. So there's something for men, there's something for women. But Marvel was smart because they still have five guys and one woman on every team, but they make the guys likable for women mostly. I don't understand why any woman thinks Iron Man is even remotely attractive. That guy's a dick. But yeah, I mean, Captain America and Thor. Oh, come on, Thor really hit or miss. He's boring in the Avengers movies. He's great in his own movie. But they're moving more towards it because I think in those cases they know they have the men. The women they have to work to get in, and they're not going for like, oh, we want, we'll be happy with 500 million. No, they want that $1 billion movie every time. But if you look on the DC side before Wonder Woman, those movies were such dude bro experience. It was the dark and the misery and the Batman and Superman has to be broody and start working on a crab ship and so like no, nobody liked that. And yeah, they are still very much. It's amazing the stupidity that goes on in the casting for that stuff. Like, apparently they didn't even know Chris Evans had been in the Fantastic Four. Had they known, they wouldn't have hired him as Captain America. And what a shame that would have been, right? Like, that dude's perfect for that part. More. Hi, Philip. Yeah, see, there's a good example of a lot of women like Deadpool, but Deadpool wasn't for women. That was very much a movie for guys. But I think they were so honest about it. Like, that movie was just like honesty from start to finish. And so women were like, this is funny, and I like funny, and I'm good with funny. And the thing about something like Deadpool is Deadpool. And Deadpool has a very distinct voice. And when you're making like a Deadpool movie, you're not making a movie for men or for women. You're making a Deadpool movie, and that guides you so specifically that you don't have to worry about that stuff. Yeah, Terex, I'm trying not to think one way or the other about Thanos, because I've been teasing it for so freaking long, and all of those big Doomsday Thanos, those sort of characters, Darkseid's more like Thanos. They're hard to do well because in the comics, like, don't forget, comics is still, right? So Thanos can just be in a panel in comics. I was like, oh, that guy's amazing. Galactus can just be chum, blah, but on film, it's a different challenge. They have to move. They have to have a voice. It can't just be the voice in your head, and everybody's got their own kind of Thanos voice in their head. Same as Doctor Doom, and so I find they kind of overcomplicate the costumes a lot of the time too. They're doing that even in the comics now. I saw I think it was the Outsiders preview because I love Plastic Man, and so Plastic Man's back, but new costume. No, it's a team costume. But I looked at some of the other characters. They're so over designed, and it just looks like all these ripples on the damn page. It's like we're going back to the Liefeld era in comics, and I'm like, what happened to clean lines? Like, this is why I like Frank Cho. Clean. He can draw the most complicated robot suit, and it's clean. He draws reptiles with all these little details, and monkeys and gorillas, and they punch each other, and rah! It's clean. The guy is so technically good. It's awesome. It's awesome. I want a She-Hulk movie too, Goblin Hero. I just want them to do it right. She-Hulk might actually be better for Netflix. Like, maybe we'll finally get a lawyer character that's actually a lawyer. Okay, my throat is getting sore, guys, and I just realized because we've been talking for 2 hours, and we could talk about comics forever. But these are weekly, So I will take a couple more questions. If I missed any, this is our cleanup time because the chat did jump a few times. So let me know if there's anything I've missed. And then I'm going to get going because I actually have another call to make once I rest my throat and I have to do my stretches and then I have to be somewhere at 6. So am I interested in Atomic Blonde? I don't know. I'm going to wait for the reviews on that one. I think Charlize Theron is really hot. But that means I wait for it to be on like on demand or Netflix. I'm not going to pay money. I haven't even seen Planet of the Apes yet. I want to see Planet of the Apes so bad. Oh my God. I'm so excited for that movie. I don't know very much about Bill C-16 other than the obvious. I am hesitant to say anything's the end of anything. Crap, I lost the question. I'm sorry. I wanted to refer to you by name. Oh, Kellenth. I don't think so, but I don't. Some athletics programs will be affected, sure, but the ones that bring in money, like tennis, no. Oron asks, do I find Hulk, as he's depicted in the Avengers movies, physically attractive? I don't like... Well, they tend to give Hulk kind of a childlike face. But I don't like super too much muscle. I prefer leaner. So I don't, personally. That's just me. Thank you, Ben, for the super chat, for the bucks. So no, I don't personally. Hulk is the kid of the Avengers to me, and the minute I see something childlike as well, it's just like brain turns off. I'm also a Thing fan. I love the Thing on the Marvel side, and so any of those sort of brute characters as bruisers, they're not the Thing, and I'm all about clobbering time. So yeah, no. I have not seen Castlevania on Netflix yet. Thanks, Mr. Fizzy. Do I think that all this rhetoric about rape culture, misogyny being pushed are causing more tensions between the genders and make cause men to develop a toxic view of women in coming years? I do. I think it's overblown. I think that people who are throwing around those words aren't recognizing that the terms were designed to shock for the purposes of getting noticed, getting attention, getting people talking about the issue. And so I am very careful for multiple reasons, but also because people take my words out of context. And so when I used to just sort of be more blasé because I was not going to be afraid of the word, got in trouble. But I am very careful about using certain terms, and rape culture and misogyny are two of them that I try to use sparingly. They're like salt, you know, little sprinkle, okay, too much, you know. And it's too bad because there are... Rape culture is an interesting theory, and it's applicable in some circumstances, but the minute you mention it, people just go, nope, 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 because it's a poison field right now. So there, it's not even coming years, it's already happening. We don't, Johnny, we don't do, oh shoot, have I missed some people? Here's one. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. That She-Hulk's an ugly that She-Hulk's a babe, he's an ugly monster. I guess. I mean, I think if you ask my sister who likes muscle, she'd have a different answer. Balabib, I'm fine with green skin. Um, my favorite X-Men is Beast. I don't know if that makes me a furry, but I like Beast. I think he's, you know, um, with the voice acting that they give him and all that stuff, sort of the intellectual sort of, um, he looks kind of like the character from Monsters Inc. Sully, only like refined and cultured and smart and gentle, and that's awesome. I like that. Um, Johnny SR asked if we have the scallion hitting thing in the Passover Seder uh, during Dayenu. That's not the tradition that we do. Some people use coins over the head. Some people do it. We don't. Um, oh, that's interesting that Mystique is sexualized and Beast isn't. That's not an apples to apples comparison. Um, I personally think that the way they make Beast this kind of sexless loser, they clearly weren't aware of furries when they made that part of his thing. Because I'm sorry, that dude could probably get hella laid if he played his cards right. Um, I don't think Beast is unattractive. I don't think Mystique is. I mean, the movies they gave her all the scales and shit, and she was vaguely monstrous, and I was like, ew. Um, so I can't think of a superhero that isn't kind of attractive in some way, except for that, special class that Grant Morrison put into his run on the X-Men. Um, but yeah, I mean, a more accurate thing would be that Nightcrawler is not, the same type of thing, but plenty of girls swoon over Nightcrawler. So that's a more apples to apples comparison. Or Gambit. Yeah. I mean, X-Men, everybody's different. So yeah, Scales is a way to make her not look nude. Hmm. Part-time Jekyll and Hyde who painted my ferret Beast. What? I'm not aware of that one. Yeah, exactly, Emily. Like, the idea that only a blind girl would be interested in that kind of thing, you could tell that comic was written by a man. Man, like, Steve Buscemi gets laid. Rest my case. Nightcrawler is the personality. Um, thanks, Phage Lives. He donated the super chat for Nightcrawler love. But yeah, I mean, it's all about the persona, right? Like, that's the thing they miss. It's not about. Mystique is sexy because she goes for what she wants, right? Like, it's not just about the way she looks. It's, um, there's more to being sexy than being pretty. There's more to being sexy than being handsome. I mean, if you look at George Clooney, for instance, he's not the most facially attractive man. It's his charisma, you know. Brad Pitt is starting to look more and more like a ferret inside a bulldog, but people go crazy for him because he's Brad Pitt, you know. Johnny Depp is not the most traditionally attractive, and by traditionally attractive, I mean guys like Chris Evans and Chris Helmsworth who just like, you know, um, you mean on the comics side, phone name? But yeah, charisma's a big thing. See, Oron, I agree with that. I wish there were more. Who is it? Sasquatch in Alpha Flight is one of them. I mean, I think Shale in Dragon Age, if you jump over to gaming, is that. And I mean, Overwatch certainly opened that up. So things are changing. And don't forget, She-Hulk was as far as they thought they could push it with the muscles on a woman. Um, yeah, I haven't read Marvel Comics in a really long time. Um, so I agree that they are pushing stories nobody wants. I think they come up with concepts to get headlines instead of actually telling good stories of late. And it's backfiring on them. DC's doing quite well. Where was the thing about the Metro? The Metro guys in comics are more popular with women than scantily clad ones. Is there a reason for that? Here's my theory on that, is that a dude being naked takes more effort. For a guy like get up and go Metro and like put on a tie and you know, put an outfit together and do their hair and all that stuff, that takes effort. Whereas a woman just getting into lingerie is sometimes a 45-minute ordeal. So I think that's it. I think it's effort. Effort is the reason that ladies go for Metro guys. I can see the comparisons, Jolly, between Mystique and Ada Wong for sure. Hi, Grey Jedi. I hope Grey Jedi didn't just show up because we're ending the stream. Maybe we'll have to do a really late Feedback Friday next week for these people. Dr. Manhattan was naked. He was, indeed. Very naked. Yeah, Lady Death. Oh, or on women putting effort at the gym now, too. Trust me, I'm going to have to do that when we're done. Good to know, Grey Jedi, that you're a 3 p.m.er, though. Maybe I'll do next week's at that time. Okay, guys, I am going to wrap now. Thank you, because this has been 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yes, hello. Happy live. But yeah, okay. Great. I'll go later next week for you guys who pick up later. I have been learning that this time is better. But I move around so that different people could see. That's a good point, that Europeans can stay up later on Fridays. Okay, so closer to 4:30. Good to know. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. We'll be back next week. Sure. I mean, like I said, Aura and I had to diet too, so it kind of like... Pfft. But yeah, go watch Yossi's video. I put it in the comments of this video, so you can go watch it. I thought it was really good, man. Like, I thought you made some really good points. I prefer real actors to CGI all the time, but hey, if they can make CGI look good, do it. Thanks, guys. That's my question. Bye. Have a good weekend.